It's lovely to be here. Thank you, Almazan, for introducing me, and also for all the grants that you've given to our clients as well. I really can't thank you enough. I want to talk to you today about a key focus of Grandparents Plus's work. It's around kinship care, and this is really where grandparents and other relatives bring up children because their own parents are unable to look after them. We offer information, advice and support, and we carry out research and campaigns to drive change in this area. I'm going to draw on this work to look at what poverty means for kinship carers and the children that they look after. So to start with, what is kinship care? Well, kinship care is when relatives are bringing up children when their own parents are unable to look after them. Children are in kinship care for a variety of reasons, including parental neglect, abuse, illness, addiction, domestic violence, imprisonment or death. And so these children in kinship care have very much in common with children in care. They've experienced high levels of neglect, abuse and trauma, and their needs are similar. But 95% of kinship children do not have looked after status. So unlike children in the care system, they and their carers rarely receive financial and practical support from their local authority. Bristol University published research in October 2015 and that showed that the number of children brought up by relatives is increasing. So now 1 in every 74 children in England is brought up by relatives, and more than half of them are cared for by their grandparents. So kinship care and poverty. This same research by Bristol University found a clear correlation between kinship care and poverty. More than 3/4 of the 153,000 children in kinship care are living in deprived neighbourhoods. You can see, if you look at a map of the UK, you can see that there are pockets of children in this situation. So we're working in places like the North East, where there is a high proportion of poverty and also a high proportion of children in kinship care. So kinship carers step in to care for children, often in really difficult circumstances. They support children who've been abused and traumatised, and they keep them out of the care system. However, doing so puts many kinship carers under serious financial strain. A recent survey by Grandparents Plus called Giving Up the Day Job found that 60,000 grandparents, that's 25 every day, have dropped out of the labour market to bring up their grandchildren. And then when they do so, they face no recognition and no support. And as a result, they end up in poverty. Almost half of kinship carers who were previously working left their job or stopped working to care for a child. Often they do this by choice. They can see that the child needs them to be around for them. But sometimes they're told to give up work. So one kinship carer said, "I was told to give up work by social services or they'd take my grandchild away from me." So unlike foster carers, kinship carers usually don't get any financial support from the local authority. And unlike new parents or adopters, working-age kinship carers are not entitled to paid time off when a child comes to live with them, and most cannot take unpaid parental leave. The majority of kinship carers are older working-age women, so when they stop working, they find it really hard to get back into employment. And more than 1/3 are lone carers. So all this means that many kinship carers are now dependent on welfare benefits. It's around 41% of them. So what do kinship carers say? Well, grandparents describe dealing with the unexpected when kinship care happens. They go from 1 minute planning their retirement to suddenly caring for a small child or a group of siblings. That completely overtakes their retirement planning, and often it propels them into poverty. One grandmother who's raising her granddaughter describes it as exhausting, especially the poverty side of it, never being able to afford a holiday. Because you've initially given up work, you can't get another job, and you're therefore pushed into poverty for the rest of your life, as no pension means always being on state benefits. So unsurprisingly, the vast majority of calls to our advice service are from kinship carers in financial crisis. We help them to access welfare benefits and also to apply for grants from trusts like Almazan. In 2015 alone, we made 30 successful applications to the Trust for a wide variety of items, including furniture, white goods, clothes, bikes, computers, and also activities for children. Just to give you a sense of the kind of things that the Trust has supported for our clients, Elle has been raising her granddaughter, who's now 2, since she was a few months old. Her granddaughter had been about to go into care when Elle stepped in to care for her. She has no financial support from Children's Services. We applied to the Trust for winter clothing for Elle's granddaughter, and she was awarded £100 in Primark vouchers. So these really are essential things that families are needing. So kinship carers are doing the right thing when they step in to look after a relative's child, but too many are propelled into poverty because they need to give up work or change their work patterns to care for children, and they have no entitlement to support. So kinship carers prevent children from going into care, and this is saving the state billions of pounds each year in care costs. But rather than support kinship carers, too many are plunged into poverty, and this needs to change. So what needs to happen? Well, children in kinship care should get the help and support they need. Support should be based on the child's need, not their legal status, whether they're in foster care, whether they're adopted, and so on. Supporting children means supporting those who look after them. This means the benefit system must not penalise kinship carers, including those who look after large sibling groups. These carers have not chosen to have 3 or 4 children. It's what life has dealt them. And finally, kinship carers should be able to take paid leave when a child comes to live with them, just like people who adopt, so there's time to settle a traumatised child before a carer returns to work. So I think when we talk about poverty, I would describe kinship care as an invisible place. Many of us don't know much about it. Children in kinship care and their carers are too often invisible, so we don't see this poverty. Too many of them are in poverty at the moment. We rightly focus on children in care and ensuring that they have the best possible support. And I think it's time to focus on children in kinship care too. Thank you.